If you run a business and you think your payment system's fine, it probably isn't. Today, we're talking to the guy who's fixing that. Welcome to Cash Me If You Can, the podcast where we talk money, movement, and the madness of modern payments. Today, we're kicking off with someone who's taking on the big players of the UK payment game, the CEO of TWPayz, Mr. Nero Patel. There's a lot of different myths about payments.
Yeah.
Which one would you say is the one that drives you absolutely nuts?
If I tap my card twice, do I get charged twice? That is a personal bugbear.
Nero, thank you so much for having us. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me today.
We're a bit nervous, but it's all fine.
Absolutely. It'll be fun.
So before we get started, I think it would be good for you to explain to me and the wider audience what TWPayz is.
Sure. So TWPayz, and actually maybe the place to start is kind of the history.
Right.
So while we're an incumbent or a new player in the UK market, the organization as a whole has been around for about 19 years.
Okay.
And what's interesting about that is you get experience in other jurisdictions of how payments works. And there is a running theme, and it's fragmented. And ultimately, the SMEs or the small and medium-sized businesses are effectively just underserved.
Okay.
So what we've decided is that we really want to bring together a full ecosystem where we can provide the end-to-end payments ecosystem for our clients. That's basically us in a nutshell.
Right. That's so interesting. And you were entering one of the toughest markets out there, which is the UK.
Absolutely.
And there's already very well established businesses out there. So what made you think that there was space for TWPayz?
So what we're not doing is providing payments, because ultimately that's already there. What we're doing is providing a service and kind of going fair, simple and transparent. And the reason behind that, so if you look at the backbone of the UK economy, it's built on the shoulders of small and medium-sized businesses. Now, the incumbents are great at scale, but they're not so great at service. So we've seen an opportunity in the market where we can really bring in that service element, really, again, give the opportunity for the underlying businesses to understand how payments work, but to be fair, make it really simple and transparent and flexible. What we're really good at as a fintech is naturally the compliance side that traditional banks are good at, but we also bring agility, speed to the market. So we get things done efficiently. We listen to our underlying clients, which are the businesses that keep the day-to-day running.
So I guess something that's very interesting is that you were able to kind of spot a gap that was already there and make that what makes TWPayz special in a way with all these already established businesses. I guess something interesting would be, what's one setback or challenge that you think that really shaped how you view TWPayz today to make it what it is?
So I maybe wouldn't call it a setback, but I guess something that I've learned. So one of the things I'm always eager to do, and I'm not happy unless I'm doing it, is learn. Okay. So you have to be curious and you have to be excited by the challenge. And each set of challenges has its own ups and downs.
Of course.
So I think it's ensuring that you've got that resiliency to kind of ride through the ups and downs. Nothing is ever plain sailing. Anyone that sells you that is BSing, essentially. So I think you've got to take that on board, but also personally have realized you can't do this by yourself. You have to build a team around you. You ultimately have to make yourself kind of redundant to a certain degree to be able to hit the strategic growth and the things that we want to do. But for me, it's all about good people. If you find good people, kind of sky and beyond is the limit.
Yeah, just building like a really good team is something.
The foundation, right?
Right.
I've used that word a couple of times, but it's kind of paramount to where you start. If your foundation is strong, then, I mean, ultimately think of a building with a strong foundation. You can rock that as much as you want. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
So that's the principle, basically.
And I guess that brings us to our next question as well, is that there's usually a big role model in whenever someone starts a business that really helps them, like you said, start this really good team.
Sure.
Was there anyone that was that person for you?
So I'll answer that slightly differently. There's been plenty of mentors that have shaped the way I am, both personally and in business. But it goes back to that theme of the team. So for me, where I get my most inspiration is from the team around me, to see them grow and achieve the visions, and actually sometimes outgrow the business, which I think is great, because for personal aspirations, fantastic, but it also elevates us in the room. And if, for example, I have I'm inventing maybe a CRO, chief revenue officer, who leaves to become a CEO of another organization, I've now got a partner outside and we can help each other out. Does that make sense? So I never feel like you have to be cocooned within a certain organization. For me, it's allowing you to kind of hit whatever goals you want to reach. So it's the team, essentially.
It's the team, yeah. And I think it's very interesting when you talk sort of about like this diversity that exists in order to create this strong foundation that TW clearly.
One person, you can't carry a company on your own shoulders. However much you may think you can do it all, you can't. It's just physically impossible, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have the right people around you.
Now that you talk about this team and the importance, if your team had to describe you in 3 words, what would you?
3 words or
or a phrase?
No, I'd actually go 3 words. I'll start with what I mentioned earlier. Curious. That's one. I think that stems from always wanting to learn. I kind of always had a rule that if I stop learning, kind of run out of the door. Payments is one of those sectors. It's so innovative. You learn something new every day. So that's definitely one. Another one is, I'd say, resilience. So it comes with the territory. In business, you have ups, which are great. You have downs, which are great, in the sense that not great, obviously, from a business point of view, but from a learnings point of view.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity to learn. And with where banking, payments, all of that is, it comes with ups and downs, and innovation, the regulator stepping in, whatever it might be. So you have to learn to be resilient. And I think the third would be grounded.
Grounded.
You may have the CEO label. I kind of hate calling myself the CEO. It's all about people. It's all about the team.
Right.
So I think that's really important to me. But again, the business is built on people, be that in your team, partners, clients. It's all humanization, essentially. It's all about interaction. And if you're not grounded, you lose that touch. So I think those 3 would be.
And do you think those values are kind of portrayed throughout the service that TWPayz provides?
Absolutely. And I think I'm a firm believer in the tone from the top. That if there's non-negotiables that we have, for example, so there's certain things within the organization that is paramount. That service element is definitely one. I think staying in touch with the customer allows us to remain agile, remain relevant, ensure that we're keeping up with clients' needs, which means we stay in business and do the things that we want to do.
Yeah. And I guess that also brings the innovation that the business ultimately needs.
Absolutely. Look, as I said earlier, payments is so innovative. Honestly, having been in this space kind of circa 7 or 8 years, no 2 days are the same. And I think that's a bit of a cliche, but it really is. You learn something new all the time.
Right. So I guess if you were able to explain TWPayz to someone who had no idea about this field, how would you describe it to them?
So really, if you go keeping it really, really simple, we just make the movement of money within a business as simple and transparent and as fair as possible. And we utilize kind of the products that we have. So from as simple as a restaurant collecting money through a payment terminal, through using a bank account. We're not allowed to call it a bank account, a business account, I could say, because we're not a bank.
Right.
But essentially it's using the same tools. So we utilize those tools to allow money to move freely. Now, we're obviously focused in the UK from a TWPayz point of view,
right?
But we've got licenses globally. So again, and we'll get to that maybe a bit later, but it's really then making the movement of money, even across borders, as seamless and as real time as possible.
Right. Do you think there was a specific maybe gap or frustration in payments that you saw that you wanted to fix?
Yeah.
That really led to the launch, specifically in TWPayz, but UK.
Yeah. So payments as a whole is really fragmented.
Mm-hmm.
So you have providers on what we call the acquiring side, so where you're collecting payments from terminals, and then your banking or your issuing side is separate. So that's where you get an account, you're issued a debit card. So it's kind of all fragmented all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And all we want to do is just simplify it. And it's not rocket science. We're just kind of bringing the two together. You underpin it with a bit of service.
Yeah.
You listen to what your clients want. It's the little things, right? And sometimes, and again, no fault of their own. Incumbents, the larger players, are great at what they do, but I think they lose or they miss out on that service piece. We just felt like there was a really good opportunity there.
Right. And I also think that your knowledge in, like you said, the worldwide sector must bring so much knowledge into how to really tailor it to a specific
It does and it doesn't. It's a little bit of an oxymoron in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of themes that are kind of the same across jurisdictions,
Mm-hmm.
but others are very different, like cultural norms, etc. They can be very, very different, but ultimately the product is underpinned on the same thing. Some markets are more mature, some are less mature. What that does allow you to do is kind of really figure out where a less mature market is going and how you can improve a more mature market like the UK. So again, it goes back to that learnings thing, right? You're always absorbing and learning and trying to kind of then deliver that in the real world, as they say.
Right. And adding on to that, I guess you're not trying to be another Stripe or Dojo or anything that's already out there in the market. So what makes TWPayz truly different? What sets them apart?
I said it kind of earlier. It's that really get that in service of our clients.
Mhm.
That's what we're about. And it's understanding where a given client is in their business journey. It could be a real infancy business where it's just started out, or something more mature that's looking to scale. And what we're doing is just taking the pain of payments away, if you like. Because if we can simplify that element, that allows the business to focus on internal things that they need to focus on. Of course, money matters, but we just keep that as simple and easy as possible.
Yeah, money matters. That's
Does.
that's why you're here. And where would you see, given what you said, TWPayz within the 5 years? What would be kind of like the innovation in that?
The magic for me is in something called embedded payments.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially you integrate yourself into a given ecosystem.
Right.
I'll use Arsenal Football Club because I'm an Arsenal fan. I could talk about this.
That's completely valid.
No, exactly. So let's use that stadium example. So fans within the stadium are quite regular and I guess by nature. So 3 o'clock kickoff, you roll up at 1, you eat a burger at 1:30, inhale a beer at 2 o'clock, whatever it might be. So now if we had the opportunity to close that ecosystem, so what we do is we integrate into the app of Arsenal. We allow them to issue business accounts or personal individual accounts with a debit card. And we reward the fan for using that card within the stadium. So we're also within the stadium issuing the payment terminals. So now when I go and, for example, go and pay for a beer or a burger, we can utilize that data to then market to me in a specific way. For example, I go and buy a shirt for my daughter and my son. They know that I've got 2.4 children within the family. We can use that to market to me in a very different way they may to a single individual who just goes to a game with his or her friends. So it's really utilizing payments and data to kind of grow, I guess, a niche model that you can really tailor a solution to individuals within a football club. The beauty of that is it can be applied to multiple industries. So one of the ones, and I use football as an example, but actually our focus initially is in the education space.
Okay.
So we've got a very interesting opportunity coming up within universities and just helping with payments from an international and domestic point of view, utilizing the products that we've got, but then enhancing that by then offering students a local account, a local card, so they can start spending. Now, you've heard of cashback on cards, for example.
Yes.
So what we want to do, and again, as a bit of a stat, I think the outstanding student debt in the country is something like 1.8 billion sterling. Some of that gets paid, a lot of it doesn't. But if we could now create a card where every time you tap and you get a cashback reward that pays off your student debt, and it could allow also mum and dad of said student to jump onto that ecosystem, use the same card, and also repay back debt. So you see how that kind of cycle fuels.
Right.
So this is something I could talk about for hours. We don't have oil.
It's really interesting because I think it goes back into keeping innovation at forefront,
Yeah.
but also keeping the service and the client as the number one priority.
This is it, right? If you're listening to what the client needs and wants and what the pain points are, I think you solve problems. Like what we're essentially here to.
That's TWPayz. So, do you have this do you have a story about a small business success story that you're proud of that you would like to share?
So there's an opportunity. I wouldn't quite call it a kind of a success story yet. It's very much in the making.
Right.
So it's a university that we're working with. Now their pain points have been reconciling payments, automated payment reminders. So yes, while we're a payments organization, we're working with a couple of partners to provide an ecosystem where we focus on what we're good at, which is the payment element, supplement that with an ARP, automated payment system, and provide a one-stop shop solution. So university issues an invoice to said student. They could be anywhere in the world. We do all the payment stuff, make sure it's FXed into sterling, all of that magic stuff that we do in the background, but ultimately make it really painless for the university to collect their fees,
right,
and also reconcile it for them. So literally now, if you're a CFO of a university, we've taken your pain points off the table because we've just automated the process from start to finish. So I'll be really excited to kind of tell you more about this later on in the year when it's launched and ready and doing what we expect it to do.
Yes, that's very exciting. I would have loved to be a student at university because my experience was a bit different. But now that you're talking about that, I think something very important is that handling money requires a lot of trust.
Yes.
It's everyone works, everyone gets their money. How do you earn that trust with your group?
One of the beauties of what we do is we are a regulated entity. So we're regulated locally by the FCA. So we have the same compliance requirements, slightly less than a traditional bank would. So we're built on governance, we're built on structure. So it's something, and I won't bore you with the details of kind of 3 lines of defense and all that fun stuff. But essentially what I'm saying is we've got a strong governance setup. We're built on principles that are driven by compliance and risk. So we are about trust first. The UK fintech market is more mature than a lot of other fintech markets globally. So that trust is inherently there. It's inherently kind of with the stamp of approval from the FCA.
Right.
That gives an element of trust. And then it's actually just listening and talking to your clients and not hiding behind acronyms. And I'm want to say that because I could throw out acronyms for fun. But I think just not overcomplicating things. The more transparent you are, the more upfront you are, that builds trust. It also takes time. So I'm conscious of that. We're not a fly by night. We've been in the industry for a long time and we're here to stay.
Yeah. And I think, do you think that's how TWPayz has helped small business grow faster and more confidently?
Yes. I think what I said earlier is obviously payments is super important. The movement of money is important. It's got to land where it's got to land in really quickly, essentially, especially for small businesses. They need that liquidity. They need that availability of cash. So for us, it's really streamlining that. Whether you're a one-man band or you've got, 20 restaurants, irrespective, we make that process so streamlined and so simple that, again, it allows business owners to focus on their business.
Right. And I think something really important is that TWPayz tailors for such a diverse population that there's so much to work with there.
Yeah, that's right. Look, there are. I'm a firm believer in the SME space. It's the shoulders that the economy has been built on in the UK. Again, the incumbents do things really well, but I don't think they necessarily focus on that industry just as much. So we've got a niche that we really like to focus on, and that's our core. And then we've got the kind of other stuff that's going on with the universities and so on.
Right.
So I think it's a nice blend. But our key focus will always be kind of those individuals that have set up and had the kind of taken on the risk of setting up these businesses, right?
Right.
So we're here to support them.
Right. That sounds great. As we spoke recently, TWPayz has a big presence in anything, hospitality, restaurants, all that kind of stuff. Um, and something very interesting is that in restaurants, every second counts.
Absolutely.
Where does TWPayz help venues speed things up?
So it's the ease of payments, if you like. So what we're very good at is ensuring timely settlements. So cash is king for businesses of that size, that volume in that space.
Right.
So we ensure that we deliver their funds on what we call a T+1, so the next day.
Okay.
So we ensure that if today there's card payments that have gone through, that by tomorrow, 2:00 latest, the funds are in our client's account.
So they won't really have that sort of pending process.
So what you get with some of the incumbents is they'll hold your funds for a period of time. The hidden fees is a bit of a nightmare. So I think that transparency element over and above, I think, is also key. So it's listening to the business, listening to their needs. We've all kind of been and eaten in restaurants. We know the pace at which things move. They've got to buy their goods, etc. the next day. It's foundational for them really to have the money in their account. So we just make that work.
Yeah. And once again, just understanding kind of like the core needs of the client.
Just listening, right? Taking that time out to just go, right, what are your pain points? What are you experiencing now? We can do this better for you.
And I think that's something that a lot of the wire business lack, which is that kind of personal take into businesses. How would you say that TWPayz unifies dine-in, takeaway, and delivery payments?
So they're built on similar principles to hospitality ultimately. So again, it's the ease of money movement. So collecting payments should not be difficult, and it isn't difficult. We've seen it. We operate it day to day.
Right.
If you're working with a provider that makes it difficult, to my mind, you're with the wrong provider. So for us, it's just being really upfront about this is how it works. We don't get into the technicalities because it's not relevant. Ultimately, as long as your money or the business's money is delivered in a timely manner as we agreed to, but where we can make it work, we absolutely do.
Right. Like you said, integrations can be a nightmare. And in what way do you think that POS and delivery platforms are able to work together?
It's actually a key, it can be a key hurdle. So in certain restaurants, for example, they use something called EPOS systems. So that's their inventory management, it's all their data, and typically POS terminals can be plugged into these.
Right.
What we're endeavoring to do is ensure that we've got those integrations up front, so it makes it completely painless for our clients to shift and move to a better provider, TWPayz. So if we keep that simple and do that legwork up front, it means later on down the line, it's much easier.
I think that kind of highlights the importance of just having the core things within a business, like a restaurant, to be really just correctly set up.
Correct. And sometimes you kind of only know what you know, if that makes sense. You've used a provider from the outset, and this is what you think payments is. And then when you get someone that comes in and goes, actually, like it's far simpler and you can do it far more efficiently and quicker, and actually you get your money much faster. It's an easy sell in the end.
Well, it's like you said, keeping kind of like innovation at its forefront with the client as the first priority. Something that ties into that is that tap and go is this convenience that customers pretty much expect nowadays.
So I mean, it's driven through Google Pay and Apple Pay, right? As I'll talk about myself, I don't think I use my physical card at all. I'm literally using my phone. Now, you still got the tap and go, which is your physical card. But what's happened recently is the FCA have launched, I guess, a program, if you like, to increase that limit. It used to be £100 on a tap. And now they're looking to increase that, I don't know, tenfold or whatever the number might be.
Okay.
So, but there's pros and cons to that, in my opinion, in the sense that if your card's stolen, then potentially someone could tap and kind of, there could be, I guess, increased fraud.
Right.
However, if you're inherently using your phone, you've got the protections, you've got biometric, something we call 2FA or MFA, multi-factor authentication. So that's kind of using your biometrics and your PIN. So there is structure around it. It's definitely the way I guess the market is moving. We're moving more and more away from cash. A really good example of that is Sweden, for example. I don't think a note is actually worth anything anymore, in the sense that no businesses will accept it.
Right.
It's all cashless, a purely cashless society. Do I see the UK going completely cashless? Probably not.
Right.
I think it will take a while, but it's definitely moving in that direction.
Especially if you compare it to some other places in Europe. I think England's definitely towards kind of like the middle ground between.
Yeah, you've got kind of Sweden at one end, and
Right.
you've got kind of maybe some of the Baltics who are way more cash. But again, I think generally Europe as a whole is definitely kind of moving in the cashless direction.
And I mean, something that you must be very aware of, specifically in the hospitality field, is that chargeback and payment delays are, I mean, they can be brutal.
Yeah.
And how do you protect small venues from that?
So look, chargebacks is an inherent risk within anyone that's accepting card payments. Again, it's about being very upfront when these chargebacks do hit us. There's a cost to it. We pass on that cost. I mean, there's no ways to kind of sugarcoat that.
Right.
It kind of is what it is. What we do have, though, is an in-house fraud monitoring system that has been developed over the last 20 years. It's state of the art. It really does help in minimizing those chargebacks. So that's definitely one angle. From a payment delay point of view, our aim is to minimize all payment delays. So the only kind of scenarios is when there is some form of fraud. But again, we're utilizing a system that's monitoring with multiple rules in effect. So we're picking up patterns. I mean, there's probably a whole nother subject on this that I could bore you to death with. But I think the sense is that trust comes from I guess us being in the space for circa 19 years or so.
Right.
And that only comes with experience. So we've seen it, we've done it, we've got the t-shirt, if you like. And we're here to take that pain away from our clients.
Right. Having just that like global experience as well. It
helps.
Being a different scenario.
We've seen the weird and the wonderful, let's say that.
Well, I guess that's what you want in a company that's handling your money.
Absolutely.
So something that's very present in the UK is retail and corner shops. They're absolutely everywhere. They're what keeps the high streets alive.
Yeah.
So how do you think that TWPayz helps them keep more of their earnings?
So, I mean, keeping it really simple, just being competitive with pricing. So you go in there, we kind of ask what they're being charged today, and we essentially try and beat that price where we can. Where we can, we make it work. I think another thing is that the industry's seen a struggle over the past 5 to 10 years. You've got the biggest supermarket chains setting up locally. So we really want to support the industry. We see it as a cornerstone of kind of UK life, business life, if you like.
Right.
Kind of visiting that corner shop. So it's important for us that we support. And we do that by just being as competitive as possible.
Yeah. Just, again, keeping the client the forefront.
That's it. Simple, right? Pretty.
They're really simple. But something very interesting is that independent retailers have so many POS choices.
Yeah.
And I guess what is it that really makes you stand out?
I mean, for them, as we talked about earlier, their margins are really thin. So I think the selling point here isn't a fancy new gadget. It isn't necessarily kind of something that has to be state of the art. It's just got to work economically. So number one, it's got to work. It's got to do what it's there to do. And then it's got to be economical. So if we can give more back to the business owner, that's our aim. And really just keep it really simple. Get the payments back to them in a timely, efficient manner.
And how do you help small retailers handle both online and in-store payments? As it's just...
So it's actually our bread and butter. So we've got a proprietary system that we use as our e-commerce platform that can be dressed in whatever way you like. So if you want it to be a white label to make it look and feel like your business, we can do that. That's really just kind of putting a skin over the top.
Right.
If you're more technology inclined, you can integrate our platform into your existing. So if you've got an IT team, for example, we've got an API ready system that's really easy to integrate. So both from an acquiring point of view, whether it be in person or online, that's really kind of, again, I use that word foundation. It's the foundation of what we're about. What we're adding to that, to touch on your omnichannel point, is the banking rails, or business account rails, as I should say.
Okay.
So that's offering a dedicated account in the name of the business, offering a card so they're able to spend, be it operational supplies. From an account, you can make your salary payments, your tax payments. So just making it really simple. So then rather than having to log into multiple systems or talk to multiple providers, you've got a one-stop shop, an ecosystem ready to go to do everything that you need.
It is very known. The fraud is definitely a growing threat with it being global and having this big online presence. How do you give small business owners a peace of mind with this?
So I think that, again, the simple answer is that while fraud is on the increase, there's a number of tools and solutions out there that help to mitigate those frauds. So for example, you've probably been on an online journey yourself where you've got something called 3D Secure, and they request a push notification to your app. So that kind of confirms that the person that's using or making that payment is who they say they are. So it's working with kind of state-of-the-art technology, working with our peers, really ensuring that we stay on top of it to, at the end, protect both the business and the consumer.
And just really keeping in mind that it's definitely out there, but that's why AI is also here to help us. That's
and this is it. It's the yin and yang, right? So on one hand, there's more fraud being created as a result of AI. You can now utilize AI to create more tools that are smarter, better, more efficient to kind of mitigate those. But I think does the kind of left hand keep up with the right hand, and that's the inherent challenge.
Right. You haven't spoken about Arsenal.
Not yet.
But we are very aware that sports and stadiums are definitely a field that TWPayz would like to get very much into.
So, I mean, super interesting. As you know, I could talk about this, but there's our end. But I think and let's use a stadium. A stadium for me, when I look at it from a payments point of view, is like a closed ecosystem. So think of buyers and sellers.
Okay.
So the buyers are the individuals that go visit a game. They're buying merchandise, they're buying food, they're buying drinks. And the seller is effectively each kiosk, be that online, be that physical. And what we're doing is we're closed looping the entire thing.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? If we're both the bank account and the card, if you like, that's in the hands of the individual, and we're collecting the payment, you imagine that's moving seamlessly and in real time. And that means we can pass on that real time settlement to our client.
Right.
Let's use the Arsenal example.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, any excuse, right? But imagine I've got an Arsenal card. I'd go and decide to buy a hot dog because I love hot dogs. Now, Arsenal typically wouldn't see the settlement of that hot dog, £5, expensive hot dog. And they would see that settlement maybe for a couple of days, but we can make that instantly back to Arsenal. So now if you go back to the CFO of a football club, cash is king or liquidity is king. So it's important that they've got that liquidity and we can really provide that. Where I think it gets more interesting is the data piece. So what we're in the process of doing is creating and utilizing AI. So you create an AI layer that kind of absorbs all of this data. So Nirav loves to buy a hot dog, loves to drink a beer, and he does that game in, game out. So come game 4, a couple of days before the game, I get a notification to say, and this data has been absorbed in the AI model, and it spits out an insight to say, right, invite Nirav to the game a couple of hours earlier, get him to visit kiosk 1 and get 50% off his hot dog that he loves, and give him a free beer by visiting kiosk 3.
Right.
Now, what you've done is brought me as a fan into the stadium an hour earlier, which means I'm spending that much more. Possibility of me buying more from the shop, right? And you see how that creates a kind of perpetuating cycle.
It's like you just want to live there at that point.
It's just don't leave. But I think where that gets really interesting from a commercial point of view for a club is imagine, and I use like a Spotify as an example. So imagine that you can issue, using your Arsenal card, you've got Spotify membership, and we've absorbed this data. So we know that 60,000 fans, for example, and those that don't visit every game have now got a Spotify account. And let's just say, for argument's sake, the naming rights are up for the Emirates Stadium,
right? And
Spotify are one of the partners on the table. We could, with that data, come up to them and say, look, guys, we've got X million users using Spotify. We're your perfect captive audience. this is why a commercial deal of X is worth more to you than going to someone else.
Right.
And you see how commercially you can tie in that data.
Yeah.
But a key consideration there is consent from the fan.
Right.
However, what I'd say is there's nothing more tribal than a sports fan. And the argument is that if you supported the club your whole life, you'd probably give them your blood type. It's that mentality, right? So if it was a third party saying, can I share your data? You'd probably say no.
Yeah.
But if it's the club that you supported for generations and you're going to continue supporting for your kind of next umpteen generations, giving up some data here and there becomes negligible effectively.
Well, I think in the UK, football is kind of like your heritage.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not more important than your family.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many examples of that, right? Don't forget about feeding your children. I'm kidding. That was a joke. But
It is true that, like you said, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of fans, and in a stadium, they're all in the same place.
Yeah.
How does TWPayz handle that amount of pressure?
So it's actually more a technology solution, really. It's as long as your systems are built to deal with volume. I won't get into the technicalities, but it's essentially utilizing microservices.
Okay.
So lots of multiple modules, processing much more information, and then upscaling them in times of when you know that there's going to be increased volume and traffic.
Right.
That's essentially it. So it's ensuring, again, that word foundation, that foundationally you're set up for volume. So again, we know that, again, let's use a football example. On a Saturday kickoff, you're going to see increased volume. So we just gear up the technology to deal with it.
Right. So you're just prepared for just thousands of
Yeah. And we test that, right? So the aim is to try and kind of test it so that you break it. So we continue to evolve and learn and see how we can upscale. The aim for us, that's a nice problem to have in the sense that, yes, we want to obviously absorb that many transactions. However, what's also key is that you have to deliver the product.
Right.
You have to deliver the solution. There's no use you getting the volume and not being able to deliver. So again, it's a balance that we need to manage.
So just being able to receive that traffic, but also deliver results. Yeah. And what are the toughest challenges that you could help these clubs solve? I mean, you kind of dove into that right now, but
I think one of the inherent challenges with that industry specifically is that they don't know that they need this.
Right.
And actually communicating that to hierarchy is typically an inherent challenge. So we're looking at speaking with kind of the key decision makers being the CFOs and the chief technology officers. They're probably the two primary conversations because we're ultimately solving solutions there immediately. Now, if the clubs are more advanced in terms of from a data standpoint, a lot of them will understand this straight away. The next challenge becomes, where does this sit in my hierarchy of importance?
Right.
Right? Because clubs have got a million and one things going on. So I think that these are definitely inherent challenges. So the best way to overcome those is really go with kind of proof in the pudding. This is the solution, got it working. These are the data insights. This is how it works. This is what it can generate for you from a revenue point of view, from a cost saving point of view, from a data perspective. So I think it's really providing that rounded solution so that we're now, irrespective of who's on the other side, so it could be a board, kind of the board of Arsenal, if you like, it's got to make sense for them.
Right.
So I think the timing is also key. You've got to approach this at the right time.
Right. And I also think it's interesting because you don't straight away think about the value within the data that it can provide for you, which is
for
innovation.
For me, I think that's where the industry is going. That data will be king in this. And it's not utilizing it in some nefarious way. I think it's more enhancing the kind of day out with your family, that you make it in a way that becomes so much more enhanced. Like again, a silly example, if you're following a particular player, that you could use that data to push a notification just to say welcome to the stadium from your favorite player. And we've got enough tools now within AI technology, etc., to do that quite easily. But you imagine what that does for a new fan entering the stadium for the first time.
And I guess it brings us to the next question, which is, how do you think you can simplify reconciliation for sports clubs?
Interestingly, it's not something that we're doing today because ultimately we can reconcile the payments. That's the easy part. And actually we have to do that by regulation anyway. There's, I guess, more inherent complexities within football clubs that are probably outside of our remit.
Right.
But again, if we can kind of make the payments bit simpler, easier, like just more focused and more efficient, it allows the clubs to focus on their inherent issues that they may have internally when it comes to reconciliation.
That's great. That's really innovation at the forefront. I think going on into all these like different industries that TWPayz is able to provide a wider service to, there's a lot of different myths about payments.
Yeah.
Which one would you say is the one that drives you absolutely nuts?
If I tap my card twice, do I get charged twice? That is a personal bugbear.
I feel like I have definitely been.
And that, now that you know, no is the answer to that question. So
Okay.
just put that one in the bin.
So the machine knows.
Yeah. But it's only going to charge you once.
Right. Do you think fintech companies talk more about this innovation than actually doing it?
No, I think so. What fintech has over traditional incumbents is speed and agility.
Right.
So I say it as we're able to scale and do more at a faster rate and fall faster, if that makes sense, which allows you to innovate more. So we could roll out something that potentially doesn't work, but we could test it out in the market and then react much faster because we're more nimble.
Right.
So I think innovation is inherently built in fintechs. And the reason I say that, when you compare that to a traditional bank, they would have to go through layers and layers of approvals, etc. Whereas with a more flat structure, we get to decisions much faster.
Right. It's a lot more easy going.
But yeah, almost think of it as a flatter structure. So you've got more decision makers on the ground that are also at board level, but also understand kind of the client problem or the client solution.
Okay.
And can implement that much faster.
That's very interesting. I never thought about it that way. You obviously work with a lot of people within payments, but when someone says payments are boring, how do you exactly change their mind?
I think it's application of payments. If you took payments for what it is, pretty boring. But when you apply it to scenarios or ecosystems that we talked about, I think that's where it gets interesting. And then when you bolt on things like data, AI, being able to then kind of start moving money globally is when it starts getting really, really interesting.
Yeah.
It's either that or I'm just really, really boring, wherever it's see.
It's just one or the other. So do you think there's actually one story where you feel like TWPayz made a real difference that even surprised you?
I wouldn't say surprised in the sense that I've always got a feeling that we've got a good handle on what we do really, really well. I think when you see the benefits or the underlying benefits that are provided to particularly small businesses, I think that's really a touching point. There isn't maybe a specific one that comes to mind, but what I would say is where there's been a business who have struggled with kind of, I guess, opaque fees or lack of understanding of what they're getting charged, and we come in and we do our kind of bread and butter and do it really simply, and now all of a sudden you see that this has kind of completely changed a business's day to day. I think that's a great example.
Right. Have you ever had a moment where you're with a new client and you realize that they actually have no idea how any of like the systems that they require actually work?
You'd be surprised if you found a client that actually understood it fully. I mean, it's. I guess they understand the point of sale, right? What you're doing there, but anything beyond that, there is usually zero idea.
Right.
So I'm guilty of this. Sometimes in conversations, I can roll into acronyms, and that would not mean anything to most people, right? So I'm conscious that particularly when you're talking to a business owner, they don't care about what an APM is, for example. It means nothing, right? So I think it's simplifying the discussion.
Right.
And actually, they don't need to worry about the technical stuff. That's why we're here. So as long as we're making a difference for them, again,
it doesn't really matter what they're doing.
Exactly.
What they're understanding.
Exactly.
Well, now that we've kind of touched on a lot of like what TWPayz is and kind of how it was able to come to life, I wonder if we could get into more just things that you would like to say to your audience.
Sure.
And many small businesses feel stuck with, I guess, the high fees that they have to pay. What would be a message that you would like to say?
I'd say, look, we're here to help. I think even if you've got a question, come and talk to us. We're more than happy to, at the very least, point you in the right direction. So I think that's the underlying message, really.
Right. Just not be afraid of information.
And no such thing as a dumb question, right? There is sometimes you kind of do it to yourself a bit where you feel like, oh, I should know this. Why don't I know it? But we're here to myth bust. We're here to acronym bust. Because there is a lot of that in the industry. And again, it just goes back to, I almost feel like I'm repeating the same thing, but keep it simple. We're overcomplicating it sometimes. Right. Just keep it to the point.
And I also think that with TWPayz being kind of like a client-focused company, it just makes everything
exactly
easier. Also, you being the CEO.
Go talk about that.
Every leader, I guess, has kind of like a guiding principle that they never break. What would you say would be yours?
My guiding principle. Interesting.
It can be anything like in your life or
I'm more about the team than I am about me. So I think it's two things. So, and again, being vulnerable as a CEO, I think is also just as important.
Right.
So having two checks. One is don't let the ego get too big.
Right.
You're never bigger than anything. So that grounded element.
Yeah.
And the second is when there is self-doubt, to also check yourself and know that you're good enough, or you'll learn what you don't know.
Right.
So I think
it's kind of like a balance.
Yeah. And I think staying in that in between is probably one of the most difficult things to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good to have those kind of like contrasts going on. Do you think if you could speak to your younger self before TWPayz, would you what would be something you would say?
Honestly, I don't think I'd change anything because I think the journey or anyone's personal journey shapes them to the point that they're at. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And I think if you change something or wanted to say something that maybe you'd behave slightly differently, I think that would put you on a different trajectory. It's kind of, I think, like we're here kind of meant to be in this room. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So everything that kind of preceded this was kind of meant to happen.
Kind of like the butterfly effect.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yep, definitely. And then finally, when people talk about TWPayz 5 years from now, what do you hope they remember?
Taking over the world. No, it's
taking over Arsenal.
No, can't do that. I'd be too biased. I think one of the keys for us is that goes back to that checks and balances, that we stay core to our principle. We're here for our clients. We're here to problem solve, create solutions, naturally payment related, to allow our clients to go and focus on their business. So again, it's one of the non-negotiables that we are client-centric and we will remain client-centric irrespective of our size. So in 5 years from time, I'd want us to be doing way more across multiple countries, but the principle of the underlying foundation doesn't change.
Right. So just keeping that to the core.
Exactly. Core values, right?
Core values, as always. Well, I guess this brings us to the end of this episode of Cash Me. If you can, Nero, thank you so much for being here and answering all the questions, just being able to explain it to someone who's not as knowledgeable as you are, obviously.
It's been fun.
Definitely. Well, a huge thank you to you, the driving force behind TWPayz, for giving us just a real glimpse into what it takes to simplify payments and really empower local businesses here in the UK. Merci. So
thank you.
Thankfully, you so look at transfer rate. All right. Oh no. Yeah, put that.
Welcome to episode 2 of Cash Me If You Can. Welcome. Pleasure to have you here, mate. And I think to maybe set the scene, always great to start on the backstory about how we met. Things we can and can't say. So I'm going to go over to you on that one.
Thanks for throwing me that one.